A friend spent 3 hours building a slide deck in PowerPoint, while Claude Artifacts could have done it in 5 minutes, because she had no idea the feature existed. Claude Artifacts lets you build and share interactive apps, documents, and tools without writing a single line of code. Most people think it's just a fancy text reply, but it's actually a live, interactive workspace that runs in a side panel next to your chat, and that difference matters a lot. Part 1. What exactly is a Claude artifact? A lot of people ask Claude to generate some code, see a wall of text come back, and just copy-paste it into a file, never realizing the artifact window would have let them see it run, edit it live, and share it with a link, all without touching a code editor. I looked at what actually shows up when Claude opens an artifact, and it's a live, visual workspace in a dedicated side panel where the code runs, the diagram renders, and the document formats, covering interactive HTML, React components, SVG graphics, mermaid diagrams, and formatted docs. And you can ask Claude to change any of it without leaving the chat. So, is an artifact just a fancy text response? That's a myth, and a costly one. It's a standalone output that opens in its own panel, renders live, and has its own version history, so question 1 is answered. Artifacts are interactive workspaces, full stop, and how they actually work is coming up next. I only caught that distinction because I've been running these tools daily long enough to hit every wall first, so let me know in the comments if the artifact panel has ever just refused to appear on you. Part 2. How do Claude artifacts actually work? You might think you need to know at least a little code to get a useful result, and that assumption stops a lot of people from even trying, but someone I know described a budget tracker app in plain English, assumed Claude would just explain how to build it, and was genuinely shocked when a working interactive calculator appeared in the panel instead. Watch what happens when you type something like, "Build me a budget tracker app." Claude writes all the underlying code automatically. You never see it, touch it, or need to understand it, and the result renders live in the side panel. Claude opens an artifact when the content is significant, typically over 15 lines, self-contained, and something you'd want to reuse. But you can also just ask for it explicitly and it'll create one. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. Do you need to know how to code? Nope, that's another myth gone. Claude handles all of it behind the scenes, same idea as ordering food at a restaurant. You describe what you want, the kitchen handles the rest, and that's 2 questions answered. So now that you know how it works, let's see what it looks like when you actually run it. Part 3. What does it look like in action? A concrete scenario that really drives this home. Someone needed a client presentation fast, spent 90 minutes wrestling with PowerPoint, and only found out afterward that Claude Artifacts can produce an animated HTML slide deck in under 5 minutes from a plain English prompt, ready to share with a link. Alright, so here's the exact flow. You type, "Build me a budget calculator app." A live interactive calculator appears in the side panel. You type, "Add a dark mode toggle," and it updates instantly. For a slide deck, Claude generates a complete HTML presentation. You can view and export, no PowerPoint required, and the whole thing, prompt to shareable link, wraps up in about 2 to 5 minutes. Can you really build and share a working app without code? Yes, and it's genuinely fast, roughly 2 to 5 minutes, and you've got a public link you can hand to anyone, and that's 3 questions answered. So now that you've seen it run, let's talk about the full range of things it actually unlocks. Part 4. What does it unlock for you? A lot of people assume artifacts are only useful for developers, so they never try them for things like forms, dashboards, or reusable documents. And that's a real cost because you're leaving a tool on the table that could replace PowerPoint, automate a calculator, or spin up a client-facing form, all from a single prompt. I ran through the full range of what you can actually build, and the list is pretty wide. Interactive calculators, games, and forms as shareable HTML apps. Research briefs and project plans as formatted documents you can edit and reuse. Animated slide decks that can honestly look better than a typical PowerPoint on the first try. And React-based data dashboards with live data, all from a plain English prompt, no deployment needed. So the unlock is real, and it's not just for developers. Calculators, forms, dashboards, slide decks, documents, all shareable with their own URL and version history. From one prompt, and that's 4 questions answered, with the part most people skip coming up next. The limits and gotchas that can actually bite you. Now, the next 2 sections cover the limits and the gotchas that nobody talks about in the Getting Started guides, and one of them is a security issue that hit at least 29 organizations in a single weekend. So you really want to know this before you start sharing artifacts publicly. Part 5. The limits and gotchas you'll actually hit. The belief I hear most is artifacts are private and safe to share, and that's wrong in 2 ways that can really cost you. One is a data exposure issue, and the other is a genuine malware risk that played out on the Claude AI domain itself. Between July 21 and 22, 2026, at least 29 organizations were infected with SecTopRat after clicking a malicious artifact hosted on Claude AI. On top of that, public artifacts can be indexed by Google, and Claude even warns you when you publish. This will make it accessible to anyone on the internet and potentially visible in search engine results. Persistent storage is capped at 20 MB and only available on paid plans. The private and safe belief is partly true at best. Artifacts are private by default, but the moment you hit publish, Google can index them, and bad actors have already weaponized Claude AI to deliver malware. So that's 5 questions answered, with 1 more to go. And this last one is the one that actually gets you moving. Part 6, your first artifact. The number 1 thing I see trip people up is they type a prompt. Claude replies with plain text, and they assume artifacts just don't work for their request, so they give up right there. The fix is 1 sentence. Just type, "Show this as an artifact," and Claude will create one every single time. I ran this a few times to confirm, and the flow is genuinely simple. Open Claude, type, "Build me a budget tracker app," or whatever tool you want. Check if the side panel opens, and if it doesn't, type, "Show this as an artifact." Once it's there, hit publish to get a public link, or export the HTML file if you want to host it privately. Getting started is genuinely straightforward. 1 prompt, check the panel, 1 fallback sentence if needed, and that's all 6 questions answered. You now have everything you need to build and share apps without code using Claude Artifacts, which is exactly what the title promised. So here's what Claude Artifacts actually unlocks for you. You can build interactive calculators, games, and forms from a plain English prompt with no code. You can create shareable, runnable files that have their own URL and version history. You can replace PowerPoint with an animated HTML slide deck in 2 to 5 minutes, and you can iterate on any of it in real time just by chatting. Now, where people get it wrong. First, artifacts are live, interactive workspaces, not fancy text responses. That's the big one. Second, they're static single-page captures by default, so don't expect a database behind them. Third, public artifacts can be indexed by Google, so they're not private once you publish. Fourth, the Claude AI domain alone isn't a safety signal. Malicious artifacts have installed malware on real machines. If you want to build and share interactive tools without writing a single line of code, Claude Artifacts is the answer. Full stop. Just remember, the moment you hit publish, that artifact is public and potentially Google indexed, so keep sensitive data out of anything you share. One thing that surprises almost everyone, a malicious artifact can rank on Google for a legitimate search query like how to install Claude code, and it'll sit on Claude.ai, so it looks completely trustworthy. That's exactly how 29 organizations got hit with SecTopRat in July 2026. And the domain name alone tells you nothing about whether the artifact is safe. Now that you know what Claude artifacts are and how they work, the next step is to actually watch one get built from scratch. I put together a full step-by-step walkthrough called Claude Artifacts Tutorial Full Walkthrough. That covers exactly that, and it picks up right where this video left off, so go check that one out next.